If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back on Memorial Day for a change. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank LOTIERZO, former writer, try to be full-time observer, joined by former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, Jack Hirsch. Jack, how are you tonight?
Hey, good, Frank. You know, I was just thinking, we hear rain out. You were rained in because of this holiday weekend. You may have skipped this show if the weather was beautiful, but you were rained in. So we,
Jack,
I'm happy about it because we have
that's a good point. I can't think of a worse, more depressing Memorial Day weekend of my life. Everything I had on the books to do, motorcycle, car show, sure, all were canceled. My martial arts school was closed. Everything was canceled. Either it was all for the holiday or it was taken out by the rain. So I cannot wait to go to bed tonight to end this weekend to get back into somewhat of a normal groove. Aside from that, I wonder what we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh, the big talk, Alexander Usyk. Normally, Frank, I have an idea of what you think about a certain fight because you posted it. And I don't know whether you have or you haven't, but I haven't seen you post anything in regard to the Usyk fight. And I don't know what you're thinking. I have a pretty strong opinion as far as what went down, but let me hear your impressions first.
Okay. I didn't see the first 5 rounds. I saw from the 5th round on. And if you remember before the show when we did the show last week, I thought that because Rico had a kickboxing background and he was a high-level kickboxer, I didn't think he was an easy win. I didn't think he'd fold with the pressure. He's used to having hands and feet come to his face, so I didn't think he'd be psyched by the moment, and he wasn't. What I didn't see coming in is I didn't realize Usyk would be 8 or 9 pounds heavier than his best weight. It was easy to see. I think that Usyk took him very light. I think the guy applied an awkward style with pressure and backing up and mauling him. Usyk didn't look good, Jack. I think it's obvious he's on the way down. I think the fight was stopped too soon. I can't really speak to the scoring. All I can say is from the 5th round on, to me, I think Rico was getting points for the fact that he was doing better than people expected, but he was doing a lot of herky-jerky movement, and he kind of stymied Usyk. He didn't beat him up. So that 95-95 score, everybody I've talked to that saw the entire fight thought that was a little bit generous. So let's say it's 7-3 or 6-4.
Well,
Usyk was coming on. I think the fight was stopped too soon. I think in the fight being stopped too soon, I think he kind of stole from both guys because Rico deserved a chance to finish the 12th round, to do it the best he could because he was a little bit ahead in the fight. I don't think he would have. And
no, Usyk he wasn't actually officially ahead, Frank.
He was ahead on 1 card, tied on 2.
Yeah, exactly. But when the 11th round would have ended,
okay, then he would have been behind.
2 points behind on 2 cards. And even on the other card.
But, so Jack, I still think he deserved to finish the fight. And I think Usyk deserved to get a clean win. And the only other thing I'll add, because, look, I don't like these mixed fights. But I think what came from the fight was Usyk is on the decline. I think he was bothered by the style. I think he underestimated him. And then I just wonder, I'll pull one of your moves. How would we be talking about the fight today, Jack, if there was a 12th round and Usyk just took him apart and demolished him in the 12th round? We'd be saying he was out of shape. He looked past him. But when the chips were down and he had to come through, he did. He's the better fighter, and he showed it.
Well, I always said that about Mike Tyson, actually, in the Buster Douglas fight. had Douglas raised his hand right before the count of 10 when Tyson knocked him down with an uppercut in the 8th round. Let's say the ref waved his hands, it was over. It would have been controversial, but people would have said, what guts did Tyson show? He got beat up, closed eye, what intestinal fortitude. We'd be talking about it much differently. The same way with Hagler-Leonard. If Hagler got the decision, there'd be an outcry. Oh, Leonard was robbed and this and that. But let me tell you with this fight, Verhaven. It's easier to call him Rico, okay? We'll call him Rico Verhaven because I'm probably pronouncing his name a little bit wrong. But I have zero sympathy for Rico. I admire him. He's a gentleman. He put up a good fight. He said the right things afterwards. He was a really good sportsman. So I admire him on that account. I admire his effort. And I had him actually up 7-3, Frank.
Which is the consensus from what I got from the people that saw the entire fight, whose opinion I value.
I'd be okay with. Usyk, you're right. You nailed it. He didn't look like he was in the best shape for Usyk. Okay, for any other fighter, he would have looked in okay shape. But let's face it, he was a little heavy. It showed he lost something off his fastball for this fight. Maybe he didn't train with the same intensity. We remember when Rocky Marciano retired, he said he wasn't quite training quite as hard at the end. He was still training hard, but he lost his edge, his drive as far as training. So my feeling is this. Usyk knocks him down. Rico spits the mouthpiece out. There should never have been a lull in the action. Absolutely not. That's outrageous what the referee did. He deprived Usyk of the chance of finishing off a hurt opponent. That was reason enough on the spot to stop. If I do spit your mouthpiece out, you showed me you were surrendering. Fight's over. Had the ref stopped it at that point, there wouldn't be a complaint. So they call a lull. Now they call timeout to put the mouthpiece back in, and they give Rico a reprieve. And he still couldn't recover. Usyk starts to batter him. Now, was it probably stopped a little early at that point? Yeah, probably was stopped a little early. That wasn't an outrageously early stoppage, but I'll agree it shouldn't have been stopped at that point. So to my way of thinking, if he got up from the knockdown and the mouthpiece wasn't spit out, Usyk was going to batter him, and the referee was going to stop it before there was 1 second left in the 11th round. He would have stopped it a few seconds before. Because if Rico couldn't recover with that timeout with the mouthpiece put in, he certainly wasn't going to recover or survive after he got knocked down. So, and another thing, Frank, even though I had it 7-3 and Rico up by 4 points, in the 11th round, I'll explain why. I made it a 3-point round in favor of Usyk. Because the moment he knocked him down and hurt him, that was a 2-point round at that moment. And I was so outraged by what the referee did when they came back to fight. Usyk was battering him. So had the ref not waved it off and 1 more second went by, I would have had that round 10-7. So even with my wide scorecard in Rico's favor, I only would have had Usyk down 1 point going into the last round. 2 of the judges would have had Usyk up 2 points, meaning Usyk would have had to fight 1. Even if Rico miraculously outboxed him in round 12, Usyk would have officially gotten the decision. Okay, and at that
point,
if
we're talking about a decision today, Usyk takes even a bigger hit than he did. The fact that he didn't get the stoppage.
Well, you know a lot more about kickboxing than I do. I don't know much about kickboxing. I took some kung fu when I was younger. So I have novices' knowledge of it. You know a lot more. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend, Frank, here, and correct me if I'm wrong. A world-class kickboxer can hold his own skill-wise with an elite boxer for a while. I think where it gets them is in the later rounds of the fight, where the traditional boxer digs in. It's like, I'll make the comparison, it's like a great middle distance runner who's used to running 5 and 10 Ks, meaning 3 and 6 miles, running against elite marathoners. The elite marathoners have an edge because they're used to churning out the longer distance. Just look at the history. Conor McGregor, he was competitive with Mayweather. Say what you want. He did win a couple of rounds, and he did hold his own until Mayweather got him late on. Ngannou nearly beat Tyson Fury, knocked him down, nearly defeated him. And, then Ngannou got nailed by Joshua, okay. And now this fight here, I'm just...
I'll go with, I will meet you all the way in what you said, but there's one thing you left out that I think is huge. I agree with the concept that like they can hang with a pro fighter, an elite fighter for a while, but all three fights that you mentioned, the boxer did not take the fight serious. Mayweather did not take McGregor serious. We know Fury didn't take it serious. And we can see by how Usyk entered the ring, he didn't take it serious either. He may have gone to the gym, but he didn't train like he would have trained if he was fighting Itama or Cabiel. So I agree with you to that point that they can hang for a little while. But the three best examples we have, the fighter, the boxer was not in great shape and did not train with urgency. And that's my problem, Jack, with these kind of matches. The fighter, the boxer just can't get up for it. But these kickboxers, these guys are tough, and getting kicked hurts a lot. I mean, that's what made Joshua's win over Ngannou so impressive. The fact that this guy's been kicked and punched and has never been staggered or stopped. And Joshua laid him out for the count and then some with one shot. But I think the takeaway is Usyk is on the decline. He fought an awkward style. And Jack, you trained enough to know this. I don't care if it's martial arts, if it's boxing, any type of combat sport. Sometimes when you're going against a novice in that sport, because they do things that you just can't process because that's not the way you do it. Sometimes they are more difficult to fight than a guy that actually knows what he's doing, because he knows how to throw a punch, and there's not going to be all this corkscrew stuff and all the crazy stuff they do. So sometimes that awkwardness can be a problem. And then when you take pro fighters that are awkward, look how much trouble they give great fighters and conventional fighters. Norton, awkward, gave Ali and Holmes all kind of trouble. Look at Pryor and Aguayo. Aguayo must have sat there looking at Pryor and saying, like, how is he hitting me with this stuff? Because that's just not the way you do it. But he was effective with it. So I do think the takeaway is awkwardness, Usyk on the decline, and totally taking the guy for granted. If they fought again, Usyk, I think, would probably blitz him in 6 rounds.
Yeah, are we automatically jumping to a conclusion we shouldn't, that Usyk is on the decline? Let me point out, let's go in reverse a little bit. His first fight as a heavyweight was against Derek Chisora. He had to rally in the second half of the fight, Usyk, to just beat Chisora. The fight was actually close. People forget that. Imagine he fought a fighter like Chisora last Saturday and just barely got by. What would we be saying? He's on the decline.
Right.
So I'm not certain about it. I tend to agree with you, Frank.
Jack, he's going to be 40 in January. It had to show up eventually. It had to show up somewhere. I mean, he's going to be 40 years old in January. That's ancient.
And let me tell you what I don't want to see. And I agree with Frank Warren. I hate to say this. Warren said if Usyk has a rematch with Rico Verhaven, he should be stripped of the title. And I agree with it.
I agree with that also.
I hate to agree with it for someone like Usyk. He was allowed one gimme against this guy for this fight. It shouldn't have been a heavyweight title fight, but I'll call it. But there's no need for a rematch. If it went to the scorecards and everyone felt Usyk lost and he was given an outrageous decision, then I could see a rematch. But no rematch, please. No. He didn't earn the shot.
It was a gimmick. He didn't earn the shot, and a guy like Cabiel should get the next shot. If Rico Verhagen wants another shot He's going to continue to box, as he says. And you know what? Go beat a contender. If you beat the contender, then you know what?
Be the contender. Listen, Frank, I got the match for him. The perfect match, and we should talk about this a little.
He's going to fight AJ.
Richard Torres. Richard Torres, who got knocked out by Frank Sanchez.
And I didn't see that coming.
Right. But if he beats Torres, who's a valid fighter, we overrated him a little. Now we see why Top Rank took so long to match him with the top guy. Now maybe we kind of see it, why he was so protected. But Torres is a legitimate heavyweight. He's not a contender now.
I don't have a problem with that.
If Rico beats him, we think, this Rico is a real fighter because he beat a legitimate heavyweight, even though he's coming off a loss. Let the Rico fight a guy. I have another one. I don't know what the heck's happened to him. You tell me, Frank, I think you were high on him too. Jared Anderson. Let Rico fight someone like him.
That would be a good fight too. Any name like that, Jack. Any of those guys. Just somebody that's in the top 10 that's been around the block that we know has a clue and is a real fighter. I have no problem with that. Then give him a shot with that. Speaking of the Sanchez fight, Jack, I don't know if I overrated Torres. I think I just was a little too tough on Sanchez coming off the loss to Caballero and thinking his age. I know they lie about the age with some of the Cuban fighters, and I just thought, as I said last week, one guy's on the ascend, the other guy's on the decline, but the skill level there was the disparity was just too much for youth to make up for it. I kind of felt bad for Torres.
I did. I picked Torres too, but it made me think of a conversation I had. I don't know if you remember Nat Lubay. For a while, he succeeded Nat Fleisch as the editor of Ring Magazine.
Editor of the Ring.
He was Fleisch's son-in-law. As a kid, I would call up the ring offices, and talk, and they'd get on the phone and talk, and I'd ask Nat Lubay, who do you think's going to win the fight between George Foreman and George Chuvalo? And he told me Chuvalo should take him apart, but I can't see an investment like Foreman going down the drain. That was my thought, Sanchez and Torres. Not that Torres was a mega investment, but he was so protected and groomed. You would think, he's going to win this fight with Sanchez. When he loses, it's going to be to a really top-level guy. And Sanchez lost that luster, like you mentioned, with losing to Caballero. So he wasn't considered a prime candidate.
And maybe we beat him up too much for that, Jack. And maybe Caballero's a little better than we give him credit for because he has some nice wins. And he's an aggressive guy. He's a great body puncher. I would love to see him and Usyk fight next.
Something about Caballero, I'm not awed by him. He's a cute.
I'm not awed by him, Jack, but he's consistent. And today in the heavyweight division, if you show up in shape and you let your hands go and you're competent and you got a chin, that's going to take you really far.
Cabellero's earned a shot. He's earned the opportunity.
Absolutely.
He's earned the opportunity. Look, Joseph Parker had earned the opportunity. He had the one fight too many against, Fabio Wardley, got defeated, and then he got caught in the substance abuse, whatever. So what could I tell you? Now Joseph Parker's career's in nowhere's land. But
Jack, I don't like these fights. I don't want to see boxers against kick fighters or kick fighters against wrestlers. I want to see guys in their own domain because to me, it just seems like a gimmick. And here this guy gets a shot when you have real fighters in line waiting that have to take a backward seat to this.
But it's not a gimmick anymore.
Actually, it's like I just don't like these crossover fights. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, once a guy proved himself, Verhaven proved himself, where I would be interested in him fighting one of the guys we talked about. Why not Sanchez? I mentioned Torres. Why not Sanchez?
Anybody competent, that's all. He showed he belongs.
A big punch. Let him beat Sanchez and fine. Even then, after 2 fights, I'd be willing to call him a contender after 2 fights. If he beats Sanchez, I'll say, okay, you're a contender. You took the shortcut to the ratings, kind of like the way Lomachenko did And the argument could be, no, look at Lomachenko's amateur career, but I could point out, look at Rico's martial arts career has been phenomenal. Yeah. So I could use that argument, but he's got to actually beat a valid guy. Why not, as a tune-up for that, put him in against Nagano in a boxing match and let one of them prove they're ready to advance, and the other guy, sayonara, we won't see him again.
Well, I don't think we'll see Nagano in a ring again unless it's against Jake Paul. But in all fairness, Jack, I do think Usyk is taking a little too much heat because, look, he's 39. He's made all these defenses. And, like, look, you could go down the list of guys who were great fighters towards the end of their careers, the Ali, Joe Louis, Larry Holmes. They all had nights where they just didn't look good and look like they were very vulnerable and beatable against the guy they should have walked over. I mean, Larry Holmes should have tuned up Lucien Rodriguez. I know it was in Scranton and he wanted to give everybody a show, but he looked horrible.
He won like every round, Holmes, in that fight.
He didn't look good though, Jack. He didn't look good. I mean, but I mean, Usyk is getting too much heat for this, and it's like everybody's had bad nights, and I'm sure he'll look good.
You're giving him heat, Frank. You're giving him heat, and I'll give you an example.
How am I giving him heat?
Into this fight, okay, going into this fight, where did you have Usyk rated pound for pound?
I had him in the top 10, Jack. I'm just not a top. I'm not a pound for pound guy.
Okay, no, I know. In fairness to you, you said that. So I shouldn't hold you to that. But you would have had Usyk possible if you were forced to sit down and write out a pound for pound list. You might have had Usyk number one before this fight. Maybe you would have had that. But I'll tell you this: if you had to write the same list after the fight, he dropped a few pegs.
I already saw that Ring already dropped him like 7.
To number 7 based on one performance. What was he in the ring? Was he number 1 before?
He was 1 or 2. I forget. He was in the top 2 though. It was either he or Inoue. I forget who was number 1. I think Usyk was actually number 1. And then after Inoue's last fight, maybe he passed him. But he was. He was 1 or 2.
As bad as Usyk looked, he legitimately won the fight. You know, as bad as
absolutely, but it just wasn't as easy as everyone wanted it to be, and that's why, Jack, I actually think he should retire.
He won't retire before this. I was thinking,
but this is definite proof he should retire.
I thought he was going to lose during the fight. You know, I thought he was going to lose as the rounds were going by, and I'm thinking, I mean, what a sad, event. That the guy could have retired as a great champion, all this respect, unbeaten, even though we talk about, and you hate it, the guys chasing the Mayweather mindset of being unbeaten, so they're not taking the hardest fights. It does have a little merit at the very end of a guy's career. If a guy's unbeaten at the very end of his career, I think it becomes important then. I think the guy should think, I'd like to retire without a loss. And if he's going to have one final fight, I could understand he's thinking of making it an easy fight, but every fight is risky. Look, Bernard Hopkins wanted a farewell fight. So he would analyze who would be the easiest opponent for him to look good against.
And he got stopped by that guy.
And it was the only time in his career he was stopped against Joe Smith. It's better not to have that extra fight. Why is Usyk doing this? Frank?
But Jack, and think about this. Think of how it changes the perceptions. I had, after that fight the other night, I think I had 3 or 4 different buddies text me, and all they text was, Riddick Bowe could beat Usyk. Tyson would have beat Usyk. All of a sudden, see, when you see them have a bad night and look vulnerable like Usyk had, all of a sudden it's a lot easier to put Riddick Bowe in there or Holyfield or any of the elite guys who were maybe on the fence who would beat him and who wouldn't beat him. Now he doesn't quite get the benefit of the doubt. And that is what is so enticing about retiring undefeated. Calzaghe never had one of those nights. Andre Ward didn't have one of those nights. Mayweather didn't. And it's like when you go out and you never lost, Jack, you always think the guy's going to find a way through. Usyk found a way through, but he doesn't get as much credit because of the caliber of the guy. And that's what hurts him. But I think he should retire. I do. He's had such a great run. He should retire, but I just don't think he will. I don't think he will.
If I'm going to say this, if Usyk is going to continue to fight, I don't think we should have any tolerance for him fighting anything but the best fighters out there.
And that's what we'll see.
If he takes a rematch, because His Excellency wants to see a rematch with Verhaven, because His Excellency's, I guess, a big kickboxing fan, that to his way of thinking, that's a very legitimate fight. And it might be a very legitimate fight to rematch. Certainly the first fight turned into a legitimate fight. I have no patience for that. You know,
no, I don't want to see it. And I think Usyk handles him in a rematch.
Yeah, but I don't want to see it regardless.
No.
I don't want to see it. I mean, listen, let Verhaven go in. If somehow Moses Atamu fought him after the Philippe Hrgovic fight, and he could beat a guy like Atamu, which I seriously doubt. But if he did that, then he give him the world, whatever, any title shot. But
Jack, you know what helps Usyk in this fight? You know what helps his perception to a degree? Because it was on the zone, nobody saw it. And let me finish that. After the fight, I live a mile from a sports bar that has 36 televisions, okay? Saturday night, hockey, basketball, and the Phillies, and a couple other games were on. I went in there, Jack, and I took a survey. I didn't count how many guys it was, but I went up to every guy that looked like he would have a conversation at the two bars, and I said, did you see the heavyweight championship fight tonight? Only one guy said yes. And I said, did you ever hear DAZN? One guy says, yeah, it's a sports channel. And I asked them, I had three questions. You see the fight? No. Do you know who Usyk is? I think so. Did you ever hear DAZN? One guy said, it's a sports package that you can get streaming. So my point is that this sport will, with the current model, it will never grow. It will never bring in new fans because we follow it and we don't know who half these guys are. And it's so hard to see the fight. You gave in and bought the package, Jack. I did not do that. I had a friend on the phone telling me about the first 5 rounds, and I pirated the last 7 rounds. I didn't pay for it.
You got a victory over me. You live, Frank, whether you realize that you got a victory over me, because I always said you were addicted to the pay-per-view things, and I'd always laugh at you getting everything, and I resisted, but I got the package. If you paid all at once, it was $449 a year, but you get to see everything. Like, for example, Jack, Saturday afternoon, Dimitri Bivol is fighting. You know, and,
but here's why. You say I get the victory, but here's why. And I don't know if it's really a victory. And my caveat to that is, Jack, if I could order it and get it on my television, I would have bought it. But to watch it to pay that money and to watch it on my phone or my computer, okay, I'm not doing that. But if they made it easier for old guys like me to get it, to say, okay, I punch this code in, I don't have to have all these passwords, I can punch it in and get it on my big screen TV, then I would probably buy it. But the way the model is set now, and with most of the ardent boxing fans being over 50, the model just doesn't work. I was on the phone Saturday night talking to a buddy, and I said, I wanted to see Torres. I wanted to see the Usyk fight because I do like Usyk, but because of the way it's set up, and everybody I know that has DAZN, they watch it on their computer or their phone. I'm not doing that. If I could have bought it like the old days, Jack, I would have paid for it.
Oh, Paul Driscoll made a comment. I see. He only watches boxing. I think we mean Paul, I only watch boxing, no other sports, and I have the basic package, not the full year. So now that's pay-per-view for me. The Zone has two different packages. They have the non-pay-per-view, where they show you a whole bunch of fights, and then the bigger fights are considered pay-per-view, where you get like one a month, whatever. But you're 100% correct, Frank. I got to watch it on my iPad. I watch it on my iPad. And when my iPad runs low on battery, I know I have an extension cord. I switch to my phone. I tried to time it to have like, pretty much of a full battery for the fight.
Right.
And you can watch it on TV, I was told. I'm like you.
I don't know how to do that, Jack.
I'm not tech savvy, but with watching it on TV, I was told you need a smart TV, number one. And
But basically now they're all smart TVs, and I have smart TVs.
I don't have a smart TV. I got the TVs right before the smart TVs were like basically out all over. And my TVs are working great. I have like, 60-inch TV, another one like a 42-inch in the other room. So I could watch it in one room or the other.
Well, the next time you buy a TV, Jack, you won't have a choice.
But the TVs work for years,
Frank.
Right.
I wouldn't get a new TV for that, but I'm just saying the next time you buy a TV, it'll be a smart TV because that's all you can buy.
Yeah.
Because when we got our last TV, I didn't want a smart TV, but that's all there is.
Yeah. Well, it's a part of me would like to get another TV so I could watch, somehow we could get hooked up on my TV. But why? My TVs are working great. Why spend all the money for new TVs?
But Jack, do you see my point? Do you see my point? The guys that follow this and care about it, like you, me, and Paul, okay? Paul may be tech savvy, but most of us guys are not tech savvy to get it on our TV. And the young guys that are tech savvy, because they don't see it on TV or cable, it's like they don't even know who these guys are. So how is it going to continue, and how are things going to how's the sport going to grow a little bit? Hi, Sonia. And there are and look, in each weight class there are a couple fighters who are near great and maybe have potential to be all-time greats, but because nobody is seeing them, it's just stagnating the sport because they just gouge us. This fight would have been on HBO after dark if it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that ESPN gave up on it. I mean, it needs the big platform. That's the thing about it. But you want to know the truth of the matter, Frank? It's about personalities. When Ryan Garcia fights Conor Benn, for whatever crazy reason, that's going to be a major fight, and average sports fans are going to take an interest in it. It's just the way it is.
Do you think average sports fans, Jack, know who Ryan Garcia is?
I think as they get closer to the fight, because even ESPN is hyping him. They're having him on as a special guest. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that because I don't watch much ESPN. They are?
You want to know something?
Okay, I missed it.
Sports fan, I think a heck of a lot more going to know about Ryan Garcia. They might have heard his name more than they would Shakur Stevenson, maybe. Okay, to give you an idea.
But they all know who Jake Paul is. They all know who Jake Paul is.
Well, I told you the story when I spoke in front of kids at the Boca Raton Boxing Club when I was in Florida. I mentioned the name of Willie Pep and Tommy Hearns, and they were dumbfounded. They didn't hear of them. As soon as I mentioned Ryan Garcia and Jake Paul, they're all smiling and, they're lively. They all heard of them. And you know what I said to the kids in front of the coaches? Shame on your coaches for not educating you, on who's who. And the coaches kind of nodded their heads because they knew the fighters and they didn't get it across. But
I just think guys that were born like Jack, guys that are like.
I don't want to vent too much, Frank, because I think we kind of vented enough about what has to be done, So
well, nobody's going to listen to us, but it's like we do have a concern because we'd like to see the sport grow. And you mentioned that I didn't make a post about the fight for two reasons. I was annoyed because I don't like the cross fights. I was annoyed because I wanted to see it, was willing to pay for it, and I had to try to jump through hoops to get it. And I wasn't going to put it on my phone. And I just thought, you know what? There are so many posts on it. It's like, what am I going to add that hasn't been said? We pretty much are in line with what most people said. And Jack, let's face it, if it wasn't for social media, okay, if let's just say social media died tomorrow, okay, how would boxing get any coverage? It's all social media, and it's all about brands. Like you said earlier, it's about brands and personalities. Well, as Mike Tyson said, you can't, if you don't have a personality, you better fight. Most of these guys don't have a personality unless they act like an ass, okay? And a lot of them don't fight. Think of it this way, Jack, look at this, okay? All we heard when Fury fought last is that Joshua and Fury is going to happen. Joshua and Fury is going to happen. We've been hearing that for years. Now we see, before it happens, they both are going to have tune-ups. Why do they need a tune-up? Because they don't fight. If they fought, they wouldn't need tune-ups. The whole model is broken.
Yeah, but it's going to stay that way, and we got to get used to it. It's about the brands of fighters. It's that fighters are a brand. They're commodities. That's what they are. I mean,
and because of social media, we wouldn't know their brand. If there was no media, social media, Jack, we wouldn't know their brand. Fox and ESPN don't cover boxing.
Fighters don't have to earn their opportunities either. And I'm talking about big name fighters. A guy like Tyson Fury could lose to Anthony Joshua, be completely inactive for 3 years, come back, have one fight against the tailor-made opponent, and then it's title shot. You know, I mean, that's just the way it goes. Look at Keith Thurman, this case. We have to hear him go on. And Ryan Garcia. When I look at Ryan Garcia, I look at a good, talented fighter, but basically he's a joke. He's a joke, all in all, in what he's accomplished, and to hear him talk. Ryan Garcia is a complete clown in the way he talks, but you want to know something? We're like, he's talking down on us, and we deserve it. We deserve it. Ryan Garcia, listen to what he's done. Last 3 fights, a couple of fights ago, a few fights before that, he gets stopped by Tank Davis. Then I think Devin Haney after that. He gets busted for being on steroids, overweight against Devin Haney, and doesn't win the fight. The victory is taken away from him. He was a cheater. Ryan Garcia was a cheater. That gave him an advantage. We could agree on that. He's off the stuff, apparently. He fights Raleigh Romero. The fight's not even close. Romero wins 9 of the 10 rounds. Raleigh Romero, who's no more than a decent fighter, completely dominates Ryan Garcia, completely. And Garcia does not even have the intestinal fortitude to ask for a rematch. He wants no part of the guy who kicked his behind, Raleigh Romero. No part of him. So he fights Mario Barrios, who Paulie Malignaggi described as the worst champion in boxing history. But Barrios wasn't a real world champion. He was a belt holder. Barrios is no more than an okay fighter at best. There's nothing special about him. Mario Barrios
lost every game he fought.
He's not elite in the slightest way, shape, or form. So Garcia looks good, wins a lopsided decision over him, and now Garcia's a star. He calls himself the face of boxing. And you know what the sad part about it is, Frank? He might not be lying. He might not be that far away from it. That's the sad part about it.
But Jack, if there was no social media, would anybody know who Ryan Garcia is?
No. But how did they build a balance? Social media is available for everybody. It's hard to explain why we get an attachment to certain guys. I can't explain it. Floyd Mayweather was a boring fighter. He was a safety-first fighter who couldn't punch. Floyd Mayweather, I repeat, could not punch hard. Terrence Crawford's a puncher. Ray Leonard is a puncher. Roy Jones is a puncher. They're the master boxers for big punches. Floyd Mayweather could not punch. he wasn't.
That didn't bother me,
exciting.
Jack. He punched
Yes.
hard enough to win, but he picked his
Right.
spots,
But
and he
point
wasn't
is,
exciting.
exactly. So why did he took off? A Mayweather fight was must-see viewing. I mean, how did it happen?
Because he was undefeated, and people wanted to see him beat, or they really liked
Andre
him.
Ward
But
was
that was
undefeated.
who?
Too. He never. Andre Ward was unbeaten. He
But
never
he
took
wasn't a
off.
talker like him, Jack. He wasn't a wise guy like Mayweather. We in this culture, and I don't know if it's across the pond or not. I think it is. But look, if you're a nice guy, you're just not going to get attention. You either have to be a bad guy or you have to be so gifted and be a superstar that people want to see you. But it's like you just can't be monotone. And Mayweather was great at playing the bad guy with the wheelbarrows full of money, walking around with the bodyguards. Nobody has beat me. Muhammad Ali lost 5 times. I'm better than him. It's like he built himself into being the villain, and that worked.
Frank, there's one thing we forgot to talk about last week. We meant to, and somehow it slipped by us. The reason it popped into my head now, I plan to talk about it on this show. When you mentioned talking, gimmicks, this, that, Dennis Rappaport.
Jack, we did talk about him last week, but I'll talk about him. That's fine.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, we discussed that. We talked about Dennis.
Oh, we did. Okay, I didn't remember the whole hour.
Jack? Do we know why he passed?
I know he had an ailment.
He had a bad heart. I know that he had a couple issues with his heart because I know he was a heavy smoker.
Yeah, but he has a book coming out also that I Am Rappaport. The name of the book. And it was very important to him that the book be put in his hands right before he passed away. I'm sorry, I didn't remember us talking about it last.
Well, Jack, but think about it. We could segue into that because think about this, okay? Dennis Rappaport, I think he was like 38 or 39 at the time. If you think of what he did with Jerry Cooney, I mean, the fight wasn't a gimmick, and we both love Jerry as a person, and he was a dynamite puncher. But the way he was manipulated into fighting Larry Holmes and the way that played out, we both know that if you go by who Jerry beat, there were other guys that were more deserving. But the fact is, Jerry had a story. He was a big, strong, white guy during a time when Black Americans were dominating the heavyweight division. He was projected as the kid next door. And as long as he was undefeated, Rappaport and Jones, they painted Larry Holmes as the villain and the bad guy, and Jerry was the good guy. Jerry made $10 million. He made the same amount of money as Larry Holmes, who I think had made 17 title defenses at that time. And Jerry really hadn't beat a top 10 contender. He beat some names, but when he beat them, we all know that Lyle Norton and Jimmy Young were all on the slide. But it was a gimmick.
We do, but he wasn't a gimmick fighter.
No, he wasn't a gimmick.
I'm just saying 100% correct. But I got to add in, Cooney got the title shot because he was more than just a big, white, charismatic heavyweight. He
could punch, and people want to see that.
Keep in mind, right. Keep in mind, there were other white heavyweights like Dwayne Bobbitt, Chuck Wepner. Okay,
and Cobb, but Jack, they weren't good looking like Cooney. They couldn't punch like Cooney.
Yeah.
Cooney was the real deal. I mean, he wasn't Larry Holmes caliber. Not that many are.
The media loved him because he was one of the guys.
That too. Anyway, he was charismatic. I mean, think how big he would be today if he had social media. But he was legit as far as a star. It's like he was on the cover of all the magazines. He was on talk shows. He was on sports shows. It's like he was a legit draw. And he was the draw in that fight, not Larry Holmes.
I went to the celebration for Dennis Rappaport's life. That was 8 days ago. Okay. And afterwards, I met Don Majeski, the international agent, and we went out to get a bite to eat afterwards. And Majeski has been a big proponent of Cooney getting into the Hall of Fame. Okay. But my thing is this. If you put Cooney in the Hall of Fame, how can you put him in and leave out Ernie Terrell, Jimmy Ellis, and Jerry Quarry, amongst others?
That's a
my
good point.
argument. But Majeski's is, he said to me, let's say Ernie Terrell was alive and he walked in here now. Majeski said, no one would notice him, not one person. But if Cooney walked in, we went to diner. He said if Cooney walked in, people would be pointing. They'd notice him. He would light the room up. So it's called Hall of Fame, and I get that, okay? But, we started talking like who beat who. I mean, Jerry Quarry was very popular. You want to know something? I'm going to make this case that on balance, Quarry was more popular than Cooney. How do you like that? Because
Ring Magazine said that when Ali was gone for those 3 years, Quarry was the most popular fighter in the sport.
Yeah, Quarry was actually more popular than Cooney, but Quarry was exposed over and over again. He fought the best guys. He wasn't protected, but he was exposed. I mean, he lost one fight early in his career, I think, to Eddie Machen. And then, he came up a little short in the WBA tournament, couldn't get by Frazier, had the aberration with Chuvalo. Cooney didn't have those things. He went right into one of the biggest fights of all time, one of the most anticipated, against Larry Holmes. I mean,
and was in the fight and competitive.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about the biggest heavyweight events of fights of all time, I guess Cooney and Holmes would make the top 10 off the top of my head.
You said it would or wouldn't?
Would.
I think based on hype, it would. I think based on anticipation, absolutely. I remember those days like they were yesterday. That fight was huge. And the closed circuit arenas at that time, Jack, were packed. I remember going that night to see a closed circuit, and it was standing room only at a very big theater. Standing room only, and half the crowd, maybe even more. Now, it was in an area that was, all white, but they were all cheering. Or I'm not going to say they were all cheering, but Cooney was the crowd favorite.
Let me tell you what happened. You know what I remember? I saw that fight in a theater in Staten Island with a friend of mine. I guess I don't know the neighborhood, was it predominantly white, black, whatever? I don't remember that. But I remember leaving the movie theater, and there were a few black men hanging out. I got the impression they didn't go to the fight the way they were just hanging out as we were on the way to their car. And they were pointing and laughing at us. And I remember thinking to myself, why did these guys automatically think I was rooting for Cooney to win? I actually was impartial. I was just there to see a good fight. I had no rooting interest at all per se. Most of the time I do, but for whatever reason, I just wanted to see a good fight. But it was split down racial lines.
I wasn't going to tell you this or say this, but now that you said what you just said, I'll tell you what happened to me at that fight. There were a couple guys there, a couple white guys there, Jack, at this closed circuit showing that were wearing a robe with Irish Jerry Cooney on the back, with boxing gloves and the whole bit, and they were there as Cooney. I told this story to Jerry. I was rooting for Holmes because I was jealous of Cooney, because I thought that at the time I didn't think that he paid his dues. I thought Larry Holmes was the real deal, starting out, making no money when he fought, working at a car wash on the way up. He fought his way. He got beat up by Ali and Frazier as a sparring partner, paid his dues, finally gets a shot, makes the most of it. So I'm rooting for Larry Holmes. And in the 12th round, when Holmes was starting to get the better of it, and I'm there, come on, Larry, get him, Larry, get him, Larry. A white guy turned around to me and he said, are you an N lover? And I went after the guys, Jack. My buddies had to hold me back. The security guys came and they were going to kick me out. And I said, look, this guy started it. This is what he called me. I promise I won't do nothing. Let me just see the last couple rounds of the fight. And they did. And that was that. But that's how hot things were at that time. But like you, I didn't care about color. I remember as a kid watching fights and thinking, I don't know the white guy or the Spanish guy or the black guy, and I'm going to root for the guy whose style I like better. And that's how it went. And I remember, this is when I knew Ali was a superstar. I remember when he fought Jerry Quarry the first time when he came back. And I remember thinking that day in school, I think I was in 6th grade. I remember thinking, I'm rooting. I want Ali to win, but I should be rooting for Quarry because all the guys that are dominating boxing are black, and I would like to see a guy that looks like me get a shot and be the real deal. But Jack, I just remember thinking, when I went to the fight that night with my father, I remember thinking, if Quarry won, it would seem like the world wasn't in balance. And it was just like meant in the stars that Ali was supposed to win so the world could be in balance. But it's like, I didn't care about the color of any of those guys.
Well, it's different. A lot of times it's different. If someone's different, they have more appeal. In baseball, it's Ohtani. We've never seen, if he wasn't Japanese, we wouldn't make as big a deal over him, which is fine because he's different, coming up from another country, doing so great in American baseball. Larry Bird, let's be honest about it. If he were black, he'd be another great player. He'd still be an all-time great, and we'd recognize him. But we hear all these Larry Bird stories being told on social media, and no, we don't hear these legendary stories about other players. I mean,
but Jack, when you hear Magic Johnson and Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan Michael Jordan has said Larry Bird is the best player I've ever played against. It's like, I think he was the anomaly because we kind of see that with Caitlin Clark today too. It's like she's not being welcome into the league, and she's lighting it up.
Yeah, it's what is. Dennis was a good man, Dennis Rappaport. I mean, he had the falling out with Cooney. Dennis did things out of the box, very unusual. He came under some criticism, since we're talking a little bit on race now. He came under some criticism. I feel it was innocent, but he should have been smart enough not to say it in the corner between rounds. You want to do anything to win. He says, you got to win for America, Jerry. I'm paraphrasing. Do it for America. Like with all this conviction. Now, whoa, let's hang on. That doesn't sound right, okay?
I don't think that came from his soul. I just think that he was just looking for something.
He wanted to motivate his guy. He wanted
right. He was looking for something there.
He wanted to motivate his guy in the corner. And I guess you play any card you can during the fight.
Jack,
I mean, basically, yeah.
That sells. Remember, Ali wanted Chuck Webner to call him the N-word so he would build up the gate more, and Webner wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I want to speak with one of the fights. I don't want to slip by. Dimitri Bivol fights this weekend. I'm sorry, I'm going off track now.
Go ahead.
He's fighting a guy. If you want to continue this, what we're talking about, I'm great, but I don't want to lose the thought. He's fighting a guy, Michael Eford, in Russia. It's supposed to be a gimme for Bivol, okay, this particular fight. Let's say Bivol wins decisively. He's coming off a layoff with an injury. Let's say he wins the lopsided decision, whatever. They're talking about, big fight next, either against Beterbiev or Benavidez. Benavidez is a monster fight. There's not a better fight in boxing than Bivol and Benavidez. Beterbiev, it's still a good fight, but it's not what I care to see as much anymore.
No, based on Beterbiev's age and the style, this is not a good time for him.
In the layoff, it's still
right.
It's an acceptable fight. Look, if they're gonna have a rubber match, I'm okay with it. But I want to see the ultimate fight with Benavidez. Benavidez has earned the ultimate fight. He's earned it. But who can give it to him outside of Bivol?
And what weight are they going to fight at?
Light heavyweight, they would have to,
okay.
I guess. But the thing about it is, Bivol is entitled to make Benavidez get down to 175. Can Benavidez do that? But can Benavidez?
Well, we know he can make the we know he can make the weight, Jack. The question is, what will he be at the weight? Because now we've seen him go up, on each fight, he's been a little bit bigger. So what's it going to take out of him? And, I don't like guys coming down in weight.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you hold it against Bivol if this scenario happened? They agreed to fight at 175. In about a week before the fight, Benavidez lets it be known, I just can't make weight. I've tried. And he wants to fight at 180, and Bivol doesn't go through with the fight, doesn't agree.
I would do this. I would have him do the same thing your boy Michael Spinks did with Eddie Gregory the second time, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. Nope.
But
nope. We're fighting for the title, and you got to make the weight.
Yet, when a fighter knows he can't make the weight, he should announce it a couple of weeks before, at least come clean and say, look, I tried every way. I can't do it. I'm sorry. Could we fight at this poundage? I'll give some of my purse in advance. And
see that. But there you go, Jack. That's the gimmick. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for not making the weight, because if I win the fight, I'll make up what I lost paying that. I don't like it. If Benavidez cannot make the weight, then if I were Bivol, I'd walk away and say, I am the light heavyweight champion, and this is the weight I fight at. You're going to fight me at the same weight I fought all my defenses at, and that I fought Beterbiev twice.
If I were Benavidez, I would just grow into a heavyweight. He's a big guy. I would forget about making weight. There's no one there from at cruiserweight. Ajay Apatita is there at cruiserweight. That's a good fight. They could see if they can make that one fight at cruiserweight. Then I move up. I become a heavyweight, and I condition my body to be a heavyweight. Would Benavidez be a big puncher at heavyweight? Probably not. But he's a heck of a fighter. He stays busy. He'll stop some guys. He'll be a threat.
He'll win fights because just on attrition alone, by his work rate, he'll beat some heavyweights.
Usyk moved up, and it's easy to forget how we questioned how successful Usyk might be as a heavyweight. It's easy to forget that now.
The difference is, Jack, Usyk doesn't fight force on force. He boxes more. Benavidez has to beat you up. He has to come to you. And speaking of Benavidez, and you also said, again, why I haven't posted that much. Jack, I saw a post on Facebook the other day, and it had a picture of David Benavidez and Jack Johnson. And they said, could Benavidez beat Jack Johnson? And I saw that. I thought these idiots out here that are putting stuff up based on him beating Ramirez in one fight. Now they're going to put him with Jack Johnson. It's like, I just thought, like, it's just devolved so much. The meat of the debate is just crazy.
You said some of the scenarios are crazy. They don't make sense at all. Benavidez hasn't fought as heavyweight yet, so he shouldn't be compared to any heavyweight, especially to one over 100 years ago. And
what their argument is, they could say Benavidez was 196 for Ramirez, and I think Jack Johnson, which I guess his best fight would be Jeffries. I think he was 206 or 207. So their argument was only 10 pounds difference.
Yeah, but they grew differently.
Johnson came down and Benavidez built up. Exactly.
Yeah, but technically speaking, Marciano and Dempsey would have been smaller cruiserweights today, logically. But if they were around, they wouldn't have been that small. They would have been bigger. Russell Peltz always points that out. Like if Lennox Lewis fought John L. Sullivan, Lennox Lewis would be taking the boat to the United States. Like stuff like that.
And Jack, the older I get, the more I realize that in any sport, you can't compare ours, because I see guys saying that Michael Jordan couldn't play with these big athletes today. But I think back, there's no hand checking, you can't touch. So it's like, you just can't compare it because the rules are different.
Yeah, you can't compare. You could just take them how they won their era, because you kind of like learn, one era learns from the other. They adapt, they change. In the past, guys, had they stayed young forever, they would have made all the adjustments that needed to be made.
All right, Jack,
Okay.
you have Bivol coming up. You have Bivol winning.
Yeah, Bibble. Yeah. I mean, everyone expects Bibble to win, and then he probably fights Better Beef next. Okay,
Bill, I
Frank.
think Bill will wins, and then he fights Michael Spinks next and beats him.
Oh yeah. Well, listen. I mean, well. That's good.
Prime for prime. Michael beats Bivol. Not a great fight, but he wins.
See. Okay, Frank. On that note, go Knicks tonight. I'm going to be partial, rooting for the Knicks. So
I'm rooting for the Knicks. I think the Cavs steal it tonight. How about you?
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I think the Cavs are going to show some pride, and they're actually going to win a game in this series, and they're home tonight. But the way the Knicks are rolling, we'll see. Okay, till next week.
Thanks, Paul. Good. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week. Jack, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.